Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Dropping Knowledge with Noah. Today, we've got Sales Strategy and Enablement Director joining us again, George Magda. And today, we're going to be talking about new vehicles. So what's kind of going on in the marketplace right now, how dealerships can really kind of stand out and take advantage of what's this situation is all about. Like, how can they come out on top? So, George, why don't you tell us what's happening in the marketplace for new vehicles?
There's some really simple common themes that dealers have been struggling with, and those things are with new car inventory. We know that inventory is growing, it's aging, but those have a compounding effect as they age, right? Is floor plan expenses have surged in Q2 in comparison to the previous year, which are impacting margins. And so these longer inventory hold times are really eating into the gross margins of the profit that they're having per unit. So to give you a little bit of an example, in Q2 of 2022, dealers were receiving a credit on average of $260 per unit sold because the day supply was so low. We go to Q2 of 2023. We went from a credit to now it was starting to cost them $56 per unit. And then we fast forward Q2 2024, that number is now $346 per unit. So almost a $600 swing in a couple of years in just margins, right?
Wow, that's got to be tough for certain dealers, right? And it seems like there's certain brands that are, doing okay, and then other brands that, are really kind of running into problems with that mega day supply. So what can a dealership do when they're facing that margin compression with their new vehicles, right? There's stuff just not kind of moving on the lots. Like, what can they do to kind of help move that metal?
So one of the things that we know that's happened is that incentives have changed, right? So it's what can they do? It's blocking and tackling the most basic, items that you would do as a dealer, which is understand that incentives can drive lead volume. That being said, in order to improve lead volume and drive more sales and move these agent inventories and reduce this holding cost, is they need to be able to get better at basic merchandising, which is applying incentives and putting the discounts on their new vehicles. If they would just do like a basic, say, hey, how do I compare to my competitors? You would be blown away that many dealers are still not applying discounts or showing all the available incentives, that consumers are looking for.
Yeah, it makes total sense. If you're showing discounts that, the other guy can also get, but they're not showing them, what's this customer going to do? They're going to go to you. Now, I also kind of think about, merchandising, block and tackling. Previously, it's like you didn't have to do anything to sell the car. You put it on your site and it's sold in a day or two. Right. Now, I think it's going back to making sure you're getting good custom photos of that vehicle up there, maybe taking a video or two, having good comments on that vehicle. Those are all things that, those little incremental things that will add up to more lead volume. I think when it comes to just photos, it increases the likelihood of a lead by about 30%, just having custom photos of that vehicle, which is, tremendous, especially in this space where, it's really a buyer's market. You got to compete for those shoppers. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this 2024 going into 2025, and we're still talking about photos, right? And it's the basic blocking and tackling. That shows whenever we look at, empirical data, large amounts of information on, comparing one dealer group against another dealer group and things like that, we see that the dealers that do just like these basic things of having better photos, applying rebates, and improving their merchandising have a higher chance of, or have a higher propensity to have better lead performance. And it's really important because here's one thing that's going to happen in 2025 for the first time since 1980. And this is through an analyst from JP Morgan Chase. He said that for the first time since 1980, new car monthly payments are likely to decline year over year based off of the pricing and incentives
Wow.
coming down to normalized levels. And then if you augment that with now potentially the second rate cut coming down, we have this 50 basis points base rate cut, another 50 basis points. This can additionally drive the pricing down. And the other thing that's going on is the average incentive from January last year to July of 2024 has increased 141%. The average discount has also increased as well. So all these factors are going to show that it's a good time to actually reach out to people who've bought a car and get them into a new vehicle. Maybe they didn't buy the car 3-4 years ago that they really wanted because there's no availability. Now that availability is coming back, it's a good time to really, begin to, target those folks.
That's huge. And you think about it, I think a lot of shoppers, they've been kind of holding off on purchasing that next vehicle because of affordability. They see these MSRPs being higher and higher and the interest rates being higher and higher. And they may not even be aware that there are these incentives now that could, significantly impact what their monthly payment looks like. And especially if we've got these special rates from manufacturers looking to, move that metal, that's really going to make a big impact for them. And the other thing too is, you've got these older and older vehicles that these people are holding on to for longer. They're probably going to be servicing those vehicles with you. Might as well think about, providing some offers to those vehicles as they come through your service bay and showing, hey, you know what, we could get you into a new Accord or a new Tundra or something along those lines. And your payment might even, go down if we're really lucky, right? Because if we're going after some high value used vehicles and we know the used vehicles are getting harder and harder to find, that kind of equilibrium is starting to come up where you're able to give more for that used vehicle and drop the price of the new one and, turn things around. And, right now it seems like turn rates on used are in a pretty good space because the availability of quality used vehicles is so low because of, the lease returns drying up. What about, like digital retailing? How does that kind of help a dealership in the new space?
I think if we just think about retailing in general, it's one thing is just raise a shopper incentive awareness to drive leads for, the dealers. The consumers, whenever they see an ad on TV, if they see a tier 1 ad on a national TV, which is a national ad, then they see a regional ad of a discount and incentives. And they're like, hey, look, I have interest. Let me go to the website of a local dealership. And they don't see that. There's a disconnect. And so that's where you think about, okay, if someone sees an ad from 1, 2, and now they're going down to 3 to the dealer level, if they have digital retailing or retailing mindset, they're going to have incentives. Those incentives raise a shopper awareness to be able to continue their process of soliciting more information or beginning the process online. And that's why it's really important to have digital retailing, is to be able to capture the intent of the consumer, right? As the inventory and these longer hold times are causing these floor plan expenses to surge, OEMs are well aware of this. So they're increasing the incentives to match the price point where they need to adjust the vehicles so that the consumer demand comes back to be able to reduce the supply so that dealers are able to take on more new inventory. So the shoppers today may not know all the incentives available to them due to incomplete or inaccurate merchandising or no digital retailing. If we're able to ensure that you have good merchandising and ensure that you take that through digital retailing, that's where we can have a path forward for the dealers.
I love it. So, what I hear you saying is making sure that price or that payment that person sees wherever they're seeing your inventory is on alignment. So if they're checking out your vehicle on a listing site, the payment that they see shows up the same on your website. or a new DR tool. Now, what about like the in-store process? Like, how can we empower salespeople to, help move that metal along new vehicle lines?
I think the $1 million question or $1 billion question in our industry is really the handoff from online to in-store. And how do we eliminate as much friction to not have the customer re-engage and begin the process over again? So I know you, Noah, but imagine if I come over and say, Noah, tell me all about you once again. Tell me what you do. What are you looking for?
Yeah.
You begin to have a lot of frustration. You're like, didn't I just tell you my name? Didn't I just tell you what I was looking for online? So it's really understanding when the consumer walks in that the stuff that's from digital retailing is, in the CRM, and the salespeople can pick up immediately either by printing that out or by taking them down into their office and showing them how they, where they're at, where they left off in the process to pick up as best as they can where the consumer left off, not to begin the process all over again, because that's where we see the consumer experience go down is when you begin from start. Let's pick up where they left off. And that's where it's great with technology that we have available is like, hey, this is where you left off. You provided, these things, your trade-in info, let's get this appraised. There were some things that were missing there. Maybe we could get you some more money. Here's where we're at with credit incentives and things like that. So.
Love it. So it's like give them the tools to help streamline that process and to, and give them more information on those buyers. So they're more incentivized to go after those shoppers who are actually interested in buying. So they're not wasting their time calling people who are, off looking at knitting supplies or whatever, and being able to pick up that deal in store. I think one of the stats that I heard, and I'm going to quote Chase Abbott here, is like, I think like 85% of shoppers right now are having to resupply information when they come into the dealership. So whether it's their, license information, whether it's how long they'd like to finance the vehicle, what their down payment might be, what their trade-in is. But like you said, every time that person has to resupply that information, that is a break in the process. It takes longer. The person's not happy because it's like, hey, didn't I already tell you that? And so that's huge, right? Giving the salespeople the tools to make it seamless.
It slows down the process. Consumers want a faster experience. And, if I would look outside of the automotive industry, I love Bonvoy. So whenever I go to a hotel and I check in, they already have my info. I don't even need to give my credit card info again because it's already stored. It's already handled. I don't even need to give my license. I just show my ID and just say, hey, this is me. And they're like, thank you. Here's a key. And I've eliminated restarting the process. And sometimes the frustrating part is when I go to a property that I'm not a Bonvoy member, I have to give my credit card info. I have to give, my driver's license. I have to just, talk to them through all my presets that I've already have set with defaults, with Bonvoy, which is, I want breakfast. I want this. So it's same thing if we apply the same mindset to a consumer is, let's take them as far down the path that where they last completed the task so that we're able to optimize their experience and really help them focus on closing the business. Because once a consumer does show up to the dealership, the chance of them buying a car is really, really high. So how do we just not mess that process up?
Love it. Love it. All right. So to kind of wrap things up, I think the key takeaways are make sure we're getting those incentives out there, making sure people see them and get those discounts out there. Merchandise your vehicles, take good photos, comments, etc. Get a digital retailing tool. Even if that person maybe doesn't start their journey through that tool, get them into the digital retailing process, and also provide your salespeople the tools to pick up that deal in store and streamline that process. Any other key takeaways that you have for dealerships in the new space right now before we let you go?
Yeah, just a couple things. Optimize what we said, competitive pricing with consistent incentive syndication. So ensure you have one. Advertising, got to make sure that people have visibility. Don't cut back at this time. Ensure that you could step up with at least, having your listings out there so that people are competitive, and ensure that your websites, have, digital retailing and the right call to actions, so that you provide the best visibility of info, of rebates, incentives, so on all the consumer facing portals. So, and if they do this, the dealers that perform here are going to outperform their peers. It's just that simple.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks again, George. I feel like
Absolutely.
my head grew another 2 sizes here. But once again, stay tuned for more Dropping Knowledge with Noah. I'm sure we're going to get more info from George. He's got a wealth of knowledge on all things automotive. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or George, where we're always available to hop on a call and talk you through your strategy. Thanks again, George.
Hey, thank you for having me.